Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the I Will Aim podcast. And our topic for today is Change Your Thought, Change Your Life with Keith Ryniak. In this episode, we'll learn how to change our thought and change our life. Stay tuned and we'll share you how you identify opportunity to accelerate your growth. Let me give an intro. Keith is an executive growth focused leader who has 20 years of experience spanning innovative business development, transformational sales leadership, and complex problem solving. His competency also extends to budget management, strategic planning, team building, end to end sales process management. It is his passion to build and lead top performing team to achieve aggressive growth and revenue goals. Welcome, Keith. How are you doing today?
Thanks, Will. I appreciate the opportunity to share with you on the podcast.
You're welcome. Let's start with the first question. Can you share with my audience a bit about your journey?
Yeah, absolutely. So, for 25 years, I worked for a Fortune 300 company, climbing the corporate ladder. I successfully led their largest sales team and was responsible for the strategic direction of their primary sales channel. During this time, I also pursued my graduate studies in leadership and strategic communication. That's where you and I met. I also obtained my coaching certifications along the way, dipped my toe into mindfulness and the brain science of happiness, thanks to a good friend of mine, Dr. Raj, and his Leo program. And all of this was driven by a passion for leadership. By all accounts, at that time, I had a great career, a beautiful, happy family, and I was really grateful for the life that I had built. However, things began to shift when I was in my 40s. Despite my accomplishments, I was passed over for a few significant promotions, and that was a tough pill to swallow. Eventually, leading to a divorce, and I was really a really growing sense of unfulfillment in my career. I remember walking into work multiple times, thinking, Keith, you only have to do this for 12 to 15 more years. And my immediate next thought was, Keith, can you really do this for 12 to 15 more years? So I was stuck, but lacking the courage, but also lacking the courage to leave. Then last year, my company underwent a major restructuring due to some significant dip in equity, like billions of dollars. I was called in my boss's office and told that my role was being eliminated, along with several others. And if you ever been through that, and I was 27 years with that company, if you ever been through that, it was a moment of fear, panic, and desperation. But I remember as I was driving home and gathering my thoughts, I tried to create some levity out of it. And I thought, Keith, you're almost 50, single and unemployed. This is exactly how life was supposed to turn out, right? And I kind of laughed and immediately then remembered two books that I had recently read. One was The Obstacle is the Way by Ryan Holiday, and the second was the Tao Te Ching, which we'll talk about today. And two concepts really stood out in those books. First was the concept of amor fati, which means love of fate. It's all about embracing everything that happens, good or bad, as necessary and valuable. And second was the 33rd verse of the Tao Te Ching, which teaches us that true wisdom comes from knowing ourselves and being contentment, and that contentment being a form of wealth. It emphasizes inner strength over external validation. And in that moment, I realized I had two choices. One, I could throw myself a pity party, or secondly, I could face this obstacle, grow from it, and become the best version of myself. So, alongside a deep dive into job searching, I embarked on a spiritual journey. I started devouring books by Wayne Dyer, Marcus Aurelius, Marianne Williamson, Course in Miracles, Dr. Joe Dispenza, and many others. And I began to see profound parallels between these teachings, just having and being happy in life, and principles in leadership. Now the story does have a happy ending. Today I'm gainfully employed. I teach on this, and then great team. On the side, I teach graduate level leadership courses. I have three amazing, happy, healthy, and thriving daughters. And most importantly, I believe I'm the best version of myself and only getting better.
Well, thank you very much for sharing that challenging and yet you a transformational journey. Looking forward to deep dive a little bit more about it. Next section of the episode, we do a shout out. I want to shout out to Kira Benson. She's the scriptwriter and director of the short film that I'm releasing by the end of September called The Consequences of Tomorrow. So I want to do a shout out to Kira Benson. Who do you want to dedicate this episode to?
Yeah, if you don't mind. My parents, I lost my dad this year. He was and is my hero. I'm going to try to hold it together here. And my mom, just for her courage to kind of persevere. They were married over 50 years. And then also my daughters. They are just such a great inspiration in my life and just love them to death. They're the center of my universe.
Thank you for sharing your shout out. We talk about the pivotal moment of how you realize the power of shaping your life. Can we go to the next question? Is can you share an example how changing a specific thought led to a significant transformation in your life or in someone else's life that you work with?
Yeah, one powerful example of this revolves around the idea of breaking down overwhelming tasks into manageable steps. The 64th verse of the Tao, which is probably the most popular, even if you haven't read it, you probably have heard this before. The journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. This wisdom has been a guiding principle in my life and work, especially when I find myself caught up in the whirlwind of a million things to do on my to-do list. And the world moves at such a fast pace that it can often feel paralyzing. But when I shift my mindset to focus on just that initial step, the path forward becomes much clearer. And a great story of this that embodies this principle is the story of David Brailsford of the British cycling team. When he took over as a director of the cycling team, the team had been underperforming for decades. But instead of trying to overhaul everything at once, Brailsford focused on the concept of marginal gains, small incremental improvements in every area of the team's performance. So whether it was optimizing the cyclist's nutrition, adjusting their fit of their bike seats, or even improving their quality of sleep, each small change added up over time. And the results were astonishing. The British cycling team went on to dominate the sport, winning several gold medals in the upcoming Olympics, and then also winning several Tour de France titles. This approach of focusing on small, manageable steps has had a really profound impact on my life. Whenever I face a daunting task or seemingly insurmountable goal, I remind myself, not to look at the end goal, but what's the first thing? What's the first step I can take? And then what's the next step I could take? And then another. And this shift in thinking transforms the overwhelming into the achievable and sets the stage for significant progress over time.
Well, thank you for sharing. I do believe in that one too, right? Beginning with the single steps. I think that's how I make progress myself too. Next question, can you share the practice of changing your thought to change your life? How do you do that practice? How might someone start?
Yeah, yeah. It seems simple, but it can be difficult at times. So, a powerful example of this is about 6 months ago, into my job, or 6 months into my job search. I found myself as a finalist for a role that seemed like the perfect fit. And then I found out I was the runner up. And those familiar feelings of despair, lack, anxiety, scarcity, they all started to creep back in. And adding to this, as I mentioned before, my dad had just passed away, which only intensified the grief and the anxiety I was experiencing. You ever get that knot in your stomach that it was, just that anxious knot in your stomach? It felt like it was encompassing my whole torso. And I really felt lost, Will. The next morning, I got up and did my morning prayer, and I found myself pleading with God to help me find a job, help me find some stability. But then something shifted in my perspective. I realized that that wasn't fair or even accurate to expect that my happiness come from an external source, whether that was a higher power, the next job, the next promotion, or anything material I can purchase. I also realized that God had a plan for me, and I was on His timeline and not mine. And I understood that at that moment. I understood that I was the source of my happiness and inner peace. It was my responsibility, not something else that could be handed to me. So instead of spiraling into further anxiety, I began to focus on gratitude. I took stock in all the wonderful things I had in my life, the blessings that I had already received. and it was as if a switch flipped in my body, and the anxiety that plagued me was instantly gone. Well, it was weird. This is the best way I can explain it. And what's even more remarkable, it hasn't come back since. And I think that shift perfectly captures verse 44 of the Tao, which reminds us, if you, and this is a translation, but if you look to others for fulfillment, you will never truly be fulfilled. If your happiness depends on money, you will never be happy with yourself. Be content in what you have, rejoice in the things that you are. And I think this ancient wisdom aligned really well with the realization that I had that day. Happiness and peace are found from within. And when you take responsibility for your thoughts and you focus on gratitude, you change your life in profound ways, even when you're facing that deep personal loss or those big obstacles that you're facing.
I think thank you for sharing that when you shift your mindset and look for happiness from within, right? Because I think a lot of people uh they sort of rely their happiness on other people or external material stuff.
External
And I see
things.
that a lot, and I see that a lot too. And I myself have shifted many years ago that I believe that I'm responsible for my happiness. And if you live your life first with gratitude, like I always practice gratitude prayer when I get up in the morning to thank for the gift of the new day. It kind of put the
Yeah.
positive thought in your mind that energize you and kind of propel you. So I really appreciate you sharing that. That's a wonderful example. Thank you for sharing it. Many people
Yeah.
struggle
Gratitude
with.
is,
Go ahead.
yeah, I said gratitude is just a powerful tool in your
It
life.
is, and people don't really know that. And sometimes it's so simple, so people think it's not that accurate or important, but it is. My next question is: many people struggle with persistent negative thoughts, right? I think that's a common challenge. What strategy do you recommend for effectively shifting from a negative mindset to a positive mindset?
Yeah. Maintaining a positive mindset in today's fast paced, stress filled world can be incredibly challenging. However, understanding that our thoughts and our emotions are interconnected with our physical well being is really the first step towards shifting from our negative to a positive mindset. Research shows that stress, and we know this, stress is a major contributor, which is a major contributor of heart disease, but it can be mitigated by practicing what they call heart coherence, where it's a state where your heart, your mind, and your emotions are in alignment. The heart, beyond its role as a physical organ, also acts as a sensory guide that influences our decision making and our emotional resilience. So, by consciously engaging with our heart's wisdom, embracing the feelings of love, trust, and forgiveness, we can rewire our inner state, leading to more positive and a more fulfilling life. One practical strategy to shift your mindset is to focus on conditioning your body and mind to experience elevated emotions such as love and happiness rather than fear and anxiety. Just as you might unconsciously ruminate throughout the day on the worst case scenario of how things are going to turn out in a certain situation or in life and feeding into a cycle of negativity, you can instead practice envisioning the positive outcomes and embracing those emotions, and those emotions will uplift you. So over time, this practice doesn't just transform your mental, but it also transforms your emotional state. And it also literally rewires your brain by replacing old neural networks of fear and anxiety with new pathways rooted in inner peace, love, and happiness. And you really start to create a more resilient and joyful mindset. So ultimately, by making a habit of connecting your heart's innate wisdom and fostering positive emotions, you can break through that cycle of negative thoughts. And this just doesn't benefit your mental state, but it also helps support your overall health, reducing in stress and promoting a sense of inner peace and balance.
Well, thank you for sharing the thought of the concept of rewiring your heart, right? And thinking about love and peace. I think that's a very powerful explanation. Next question I have is: how do you explain the connection between our thoughts and our outcome? And is it purely psychological, or are there any deeper or spiritual meaning to it?
Yeah, I would say there's absolutely a deeper spiritual aspect to this connection. Lao Tzu says in verse 21 of the Tao is elusive and intangible, Although formless and intangible, it gives rise to form. So this illustrates the idea that our thoughts, though intangible, have the power to manifest tangible realities. In modern context, it reminds us that the thoughts and energy that we project into the world shape our reality, even if those effects aren't immediately visible. So whether it's through positive thinking, setting clear intentions, or visualizing success, the intangible forces within us rise to tangible outcomes in our life. But we truly have to believe in those thoughts. It can't just be positive thinking. We have to have that feeling of that we're in that new state. So you've likely heard quotes like "where energy flows, intention goes," or "nerve cells that wire together, or nerve cells that fire together wire together." These concepts are central to understanding how our thoughts shape our reality. Dr. Joe Dispenza explains that as we learn to think differently, we actually rewire our brain, literally reshaping our cerebral architecture. Dr. Bruce Lipton takes it a little bit further, showing us that our subconscious mind, which governs most of our behavior, like 99% of our day, is governed by our subconscious, which is incredible. But it's continuously being influenced by our conscious thoughts. So the more we can think consciously and have those positive thoughts, we can truly transform our reality. And that coherence has to be between the heart and the mind, though. But think of the world around you as a projection screen, and our thoughts acting as the movie projector. When we align our conscious thoughts with harmony, balance, and flow, and truly believe that with both our heart and mind, our brain begins to rewire our subconscious mind. This heart mind coherence is key. It's not just about thinking positively, but it's about believing in the positive outcome with every fiber of our body. And over time, as we consistently focus and believe in positive thoughts, we start to experience more beauty and happiness in our lives, creating a deeper sense of inner peace. So the process is not just psychological; it's deeply spiritual. Dr. James Doney, in his research in neuroscience, talks about the energy we project through our thoughts and emotions, and are backed by our beliefs, inevitably return in a form of our experience. It's like planting a seed. The thoughts that we nurture and believe are the ones that grow into the outcomes of our life. So by consciously choosing to focus and believe on positive and harmonious thoughts of love, thoughts of inner peace, we essentially are cultivating a garden in our reality.
I love the fact that you mentioned it's not about just thinking positive thought, because sometimes
Got it.
I hear people like you just need to think positive, and I love that you
Yeah.
index on that's not the only thing you need to do. The rewiring of your heart and your mind is quite important, and the shifting of the mindset and truly feeling that it actually happened to you is
Yeah.
equally important. Thank you for highlighting that.
Think of that future reality that you want to be, or that you want, and then really feel like you're there already. And that's that heart and mind
It's
connection.
like the
Yeah,
manifestation, right? Manifestation, the future state
exactly.
that you and feel like you said, you're in there, living it and experiencing it. Let me go to the next question. In your experience, what are the common thought pattern that holds people back, and how can they begin to overcome those limiting beliefs?
Yeah. I think one of the most common thought patterns that hold people back is the fear of the unknown, the fear of the future, holding on to regrets and mistakes from the past, or the need for certainty in every aspect of our life. This fear often manifests into overthinking, indecision, or even reluctance to take risks. That's a big one. One of the verses of the Tao speaks to, which is verse 13, speaks to this. And it says, "Hope and fear are both phantoms that arise from thinking of the self. We don't see the self as self. We do, I'm sorry, what we do, what do we have to fear?" This verse highlights how much our fear and anxiety are tied to our ego,
Mm.
the part of us that is overly focused on self preservation, status, and control. The ego thrives on certainty and predictability. And when it's threatened, what does it do? It responds in fear. And to overcome these limiting beliefs, we must let go of the attachment to ourself and the illusions that the ego creates. A practical way to do this to overcome limiting beliefs is using the RAIN technique. It's an acronym. And what RAIN stands for is recognize, allow, investigate, and nurture. So first we recognize these thoughts and these feelings that are arising, right? And then instead of pushing them away, we allow them to exist without suppressing them. Just sit with them for a minute or so. And then we investigate with curiosity. Ask yourself, what's the root cause of this? Why are these emotions coming through, and what are the thoughts and the emotions, and how are they? It really kind of investigate what's going on there, and it's part of your subconscious, because 99% of our day is subconscious, and actually our subconscious is programmed by the age of 7. So a lot of it is from just the environment that we grew up in. Finally, the last is N, nurture. Nurture ourselves with compassion and kindness, and acknowledge that it's okay to feel this way. By regularly practicing mindfulness through RAIN, we can begin to see our fears for what they truly are. They're phantoms of the ego, and that lose power when we stop feeding them and giving them attention. So this process helps cultivate a sense of detachment from the ego and embrace the natural flow of life, accepting the uncertainty part of it, right? Because life is uncertain. We know that. And if we just accept that and flow with it, and use techniques like the RAIN, you will be able to shift that mindset.
Thank you for sharing the rain technique. I think as you were explaining the whole process and concept, the one thing that comes to mind is similar to emotional intelligence. You need to understand why you're having that emotion, and you cannot suppress it.
Yeah.
Suppress it is really the worst thing you could do. It would look like you're doing well right now, but in the coming days and months, you are not. Right? It's just hiding it under the rug. And as you try to understand why I'm having this feeling, why do I feel this way, and then work on identifying the root cause. I think identifying the root
Yeah.
cause, and ultimately, as one of my other guests said, I'm I might not have a choice in my situation. However, I'm responsible for taking action. Scott was my one of my guests before, and he said that I don't
Yeah.
control how things happen to me, but I'm responsible for responding to it. And I love the way he explained to using the rain technique in order to actually work through that emotion and being able to be in a better state at the end of the day. Thank you for sharing the rain
Yeah.
technique. Next
My
question
pleasure.
for you is, we talk a lot about your practicing of the Tao, and you're reading all of this mindfulness thing from Lao Tzu. Can you share your daily practice to our audience, and maybe recommend something that helps support the sustaining growth for mindset, happiness, and success?
Yeah, absolutely. One of the key verses of the Tao that resonates with my daily practice is verse 10, which asks, "Can you cleanse your inner vision until you see nothing but the light?" This verse emphasizes the importance of purifying your mind and your spirit to maintain clarity, focus, and a positive outlook on life. So my morning routine is designed to help me cleanse my inner thoughts and my inner vision, and align myself with the principles of the Tao. It includes meditation, where I focus on calming my mind and a connection with a deeper sense of peace. I follow that with prayer, which helps me align my intentions with a higher purpose. And then I do some journaling or some self reflection, where I write down things that I'm grateful for, that power of gratitude that we talked about, and really reinforcing a mindset of abundance and feeling it, right? Like we say, connect those thoughts with those feelings. I also incorporate hot yoga or exercise 3 to 4 days a week. It's just the yoga, whether it's hot or not, is just a great mind body connection. Breath work, just kind of all kind of works in there, and that not only strengthens my body but also helps me release physical tension that might cloud my mind. Another thing I do a few times a week is breath work. And I think it's become an essential part of my routine. It helps me reset and energize both my body and my mind. Wim Hof is a great one to look up if you want to do some breath work. He's called the Iceman. He does ice baths and just he's incredible. But his breath work is pretty neat. I finish my day with a cold blast. So I talked about Wim Hof, the Iceman, a cold blast of the shower, which invigorates me and helps me build up resilience. I think I do that just because I think I feel like if I can take on a cold blast and sit in a cold shower for a couple of minutes, anything I face during the day is going to be easy. Anything else, right? Finally, I engage in some sort of learning, whether it's a podcast, YouTube is a wonderful resource, or reading to nourish my mind and keep it sharp. I think these practices together form a powerful routine that sustains a mindset of growth, success, and happiness. And they help me continuously cleanse my inner vision, allowing me to approach each day with clarity, focus, and positivity. I'm not going to say that every day is going to be perfect just because I do those things, but I've set myself up in a way to face anything that comes my way by kind of getting up an hour or 2 hours early, even an hour and a half early to really set my mind right.
Well, thank you for sharing your practice. I think I'm really impressed with how you state each one of them and how each one of them would help you become a better or more resilient person. I think we talk a lot about changing your thought and changing your life, and you gave a lot of specific example, including the rain technique on how people could address and focus on resolving and identifying the root cause. If there are three takeaway for this episode, what would those three takeaway be?
Yeah, I think most importantly, when you really want to change your thoughts, you got to think more consciously. So, um, first of all, try to catch yourself. Go back to that rain technique and try to catch yourself when you're having those limiting beliefs or those those negative thoughts, and just go through the rain technique at that point. And when you do that, that the more you catch yourself, the more you start to think more consciously, then you can start to rewire your subconscious, like we talked about, and that starts to plant those seeds and cultivate a new garden. Rewires your neural paths from those thinkings of those limiting beliefs, those things that hold you back, to more positive and that inner belief. And then lastly, take the responsibility. You are responsible. You are the source of your own happiness. If you think it's going to come from the next thing that you buy, or the next promotion, or the material things in life, you're wrong. Those will create a spike in dopamine that is short. But if you want that sustainable, take the responsibility yourself, find that inner happiness. Don't put it on anybody else. And I promise you that feeling of anxiety that you have in your life will go away.
Well, I really love the last one, right? I mean, find the inner source of your happiness. Thank you for sharing that. I think I want to give you an opportunity to tell my audience what projects are you working on, or if they want to reach out to you, how they might reach out to you, or invite you to speak at the
Yeah,
event.
yeah. Thank you. That would be wonderful. So LinkedIn is the best way to get a hold of me. I have all of my contact information on LinkedIn. Keith Ryniak, Ryniak. You can see it up there. My Gmail is my full name, or my email is keithryniak@gmail.com. But LinkedIn has everything out there, and I'm very active on there. So we can definitely connect there.
Thank you, Keith. I'm really glad that we met at Seton Hall doing a Master of
Yeah,
Arts in Strategic Communication Leadership from 2006 to 2008, part of Learning Team 21, LT21. I still remember that. But most
yeah. We've known
importantly,
each other a long
we
time.
stayed connected throughout this journey. We went through the same challenges and hard time. And I appreciate you being a constant partner of discussion every 2 weeks. And really want to thank you for coming to be a guest on my episode, one of my episodes. Really thank you for your time. Appreciate you, Keith. Have a good day.
Thank you, Will. It's really been a pleasure and an honor to be a part of this, but also to know you. You've been an inspiration for me, and you've really helped me through some tough times in life. So thank you.
You're welcome. Take care.
All right, bye bye.